Hey, Kelly Riley from Tulsa, Oklahoma. This is my latest build, 2001 Lexus IS300. But maybe before we get into that, we'll maybe talk about some of the stuff that's happened in the past. For starters, I'm 50 years old, so I'm kind of a boosted fogey, old fogey, whatever you want to call me. Boosted fogey, old fogey, whatever you want to call me. Back in the day, twin turbo 300, turbo Miata, turboed a couple of Land Cruisers for doing some rock crawling and stuff like that. I always had my eyes set on doing like a 2JZ GTE motor and something, but at the time I really didn't know what vehicle I would want to put that into. Did a little research on the internet and noticed that IS300s and GS300s were popular for doing the swap, and I decided upon maybe doing the IS, being a smaller car, lighter car. Thought, hey, I think I can make a go of this. So the first step was to actually locate a car. Barn build status, if you will, it's kind of like a low budget type thing. Actually ran across this particular one here in Dallas. I think the car was $2,000. It's a nice car, but at the same time, it's not pristine, I kind of wanted to build like a sleeper type, your average fun car. What do I need it for? I have no idea. People ask me all the time, why do you need this car? I mean, you're 50 years old. I mean, the build, to be honest, was a large majority of the passion for this project. I mean, like I say, I had turboed several different vehicles from scratch, actually. Somewhere you had to maybe fabricate a manifold, somewhere that there were existing manifolds for the particular engine. I had never done a full-on motor swap. The GTE motor in particular was always an alluring choice for me. I secured the car, which was originally supposed to be for my 16-year-old son, but he ended up driving my Land Cruiser and I got this. So, things happen, Ended up shopping for an Aristo motor, because obviously the super motor is a lot more difficult to come by, but basically the GTE motor is the same as a super motor, other than having the VVTi on this one as opposed to the non. Found a really good deal on an engine, transmission, ECU, and wiring harness out of California. After that, the swap began. I get the motor in and everything, separate the transmission off of it, put on the engine stand, and basically just resealed everything. I ran the automatic transmission that came with the Aristo motor and factory ECU, and I started out with a Turbonetics 6662. And to be honest, it really would not spool very well. I was like, something's amiss here, because I've been here and done this on other projects, and I didn't really run into that kind of problem. So I ended up going to the manual transmission prior to swapping turbos, which the first one was an earlier version out of probably an 04, 05 350. I actually ended up having some synchro issues on that one and what have you, which is pretty common knowledge for people that have done the swap with that particular transmission. Eventually I secured a 2016 version out of a 370 that only had 16,000 miles on it. That one's been rock solid. I mean, the difference between the automatic and the manual is just a total transformation. On top of that, it allowed me to run a standalone ECU, as where with the automatic, there's not too many ECUs out there that's capable of actually controlling Toyota's automatic transmissions. A couple of companies out in Oregon, I believe, were putting together for a Link standalone for this particular chassis, and I decided let's go that route and see what we can do with that. And it was obviously night and day difference between there's not much you can do really with the factory ECU. Turbo wasn't spooling up with the Turbonetics. I ended up deciding on a Precision 6262. Still maybe had some issues there and what have you, and I've got this bottleneck somewhere. The initial intercooler that I went with, it turned out to be only like 575 CFM, so therefore it just wasn't flowing to the degree that it needed to be flowing for this, for the horsepower. Of course, it's got 1,000 horsepower. We know this, right? Because every 2JZ has 1,000 horsepower, from what you read on the internet anyway. Truth be known, it's got 450 at the wheel. Just changing to a larger intercooler, like it's a little over 1,000 CFM, enabled it to breathe like it should. And I mean, from the very first drive in the car, after that intercooler, it was like night and day difference. I mean, it was just like, oh wow, this was the problem. I mean, it just lit right up. After we dynoed it again, it was good for about 60 horsepower roughly across the board. I did make the transition somewhere in all this between pump gas and E85, or E66 if you're in Tulsa, because that's about the best we can get. It's been just a pleasure to do the car. I mean, like I said before, people say, you know, you're 50, you've got kids, you've got teenagers, this and that. What do you need this car for? You know, we're all about motors and wheels, and I've always been that way my whole life. I just enjoyed building the car, and you know, I like to get out on the highway, do some pulls in it. Got a little girl that we have that I go pick up from school in it. I mean, she's like, you know, Daddy, go fast.
Go super fast. Whoa.
It's just fun, you know, after a long day at work or whatever, and being all stressed out and what have you, to come home and go out and take this thing for a spin, and it's just, I just get in it and have a good time, really. We're rolling? Okay, both of them. Can do an Eddie Murphy in the middle of it and go, I told you I'm expert at this, man. Shit, I'm losing my train here. I know, cut that part out now. It's a 2JZGTE and, you know.